There are moments in life that break your trust, shake your identity, and force you to ask hard questions about your worth. Now, I'll be honest, a lot of us have been there. And for many people, especially parents and entrepreneurs, those moments arrive when they are already stretched thin. Today's conversation is exactly about overcoming those feelings and talking about, what happens when life cracks you open. Welcome to another episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, where we focus on practical, honest conversations about mental wellness and real life growth. My name is Sayan, as you all know, and today I'm joined by Julie Feldman, founder and CEO of Aurenda, a busy mom of three, and a wellness entrepreneur who has lived through betrayal, self doubt, and rebuilding from the ground up. So, I invite you all to join me in this episode where we are talking about surviving betrayal, reclaiming self worth, and how building a business can actually rebuild you in the process. So, Julie, I believe this is going to be a very realistic conversation, and I'm excited to have you here in this show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to connect and have conversation.
Yeah, perfect. Likewise, Julie. And before we kind of get into the tools, or I would say the lessons, I would love to start simply. Is that when you look back at the hardest season of your life, what did that version of you need the most, but didn't yet know how to give herself?
She needed an unshakable faith in herself and her intuition.
Wow. And how did that come to you, I would say? Like, how did you realize that? And when was it that you realized that?
I think it's something that each of us is on our own journey of finding that unshakable strength and faith in who we are at our essence and why we're here and what we're here to serve. And I think for me, it was a stepping stones path. So it's little by little. And I mean, I think that I believe w- until we're like in a mastery state, which I don't know if I think that it's really hard to get in mastery in this human life. I think we
Because
can get
there's just so much
there's so much.
after that.
So many layers. So it's like I could get really, really good at something,
Hmm.
really good, excellent,
Hmm.
but I'm always learning. I mean, I think that's why we're here. And so I'm so much better than when I was. I had two deep moments of true breaking in my life so far. And it's from those that I picked myself up and started gaining that knowledge and claiming myself. But it's taken, it's a long road and it's worth
It is. Yeah, it is. It is absolutely. And as you were telling about, there's just so much. I mean, when you were talking about mastery in general, yeah, that I just this is a bit off topic, obviously, but I was thinking to myself that, there are a lot of people who would claim that they're the best, but I think that is the mindset that you should never tap into, because there's always going to be someone better than you, right?
Oh.
Um, and
Maybe
maybe.
the student. It's that just like that was it a parable or a statement of like the teacher is always the student. Always.
Yeah. Always. That's so true. And I'm curious about this. Now coming back to the conversation, I think a lot of people think betrayal just breaks trust with others. But from your experience, what do you think people misunderstand the most about how betrayal really affects self-worth?
I think that is a great question. And I believe that how betrayal can play into self worth. There are a myriad of choices and things that can happen. One, you can feel betrayed by someone. In my life, you know, I could say that I was betrayed by the way I was parented. That child, when I go back and visit her in like inner child work, which is basically my adult self goes back to my child memory and that child that lives within me, and I work on healing and connecting with her. So when I do that work, I see a little girl who needed to be parented differently. And so there's a betrayal feeling and energy there and a trauma. There's a betrayal from a marriage where neither of us were living the truth. I didn't want to see the truth, and he wasn't giving me the truth. And he, be- betrayed our marriage in multiple different, really challenging ways. Um, all of those incidences could have broken me. They brought me to my knees for sure. It's what you do when you're down. Do you reflect and say, "Oh, why was this happening to me? Oh, this is such a sad situation." And I'm not saying it wasn't, it was. And I'm sure your listeners and all of us in this world have had a truly horrible or breakdown moment, and we were the victim.
Hmm.
And do we wanna hold on to the story of that? Like, how do we carry forward from that? Can we also say that this moment, as horrible as it was, and not take that away, but hold the "and" of, "This was horrible, and this happened for me, and what can I learn from it, and how can I grow from it?" Um, and so that's how I do believe that these moments of betrayal can actually help us really build our worth in this world, is when we start asking ourselves the questions.
Yeah, that's a very beautifully answered, I would say, because I think, yeah, people really do misunderstand about betrayal in general is that it breaks the trust with the other person, which it does. But you're not really concerned about the trust with the other person when you're yourself down on your knees, right? And I think what you portray really, I think. Um, tells me that betrayal often turns inward, in most cases. I think it makes people question their judgment, their value, and even their identity in worst cases. But if we stay with that for a second, Julie, when self-worth takes a hit like that, what deeper patterns did you notice in yourself that had to be examined, right? Like there's always so this is what I follow. There's always three questions to any kind of problem statement, right? So it's the what, then the why, then the how. Now most of us, we figured out the why. It's the, if I have to give you a ratio, I would say 1:9, right? That cracks the how. But again, coming to the why aspect of things, right? So what could you say? So what's your take from that?
I love that, and I do believe that what we don't often realize in situations where betrayal happens to us, there's a part of us that is betraying ourselves. Not every situation will lead you there, and I don't know everyone's situation, but a lot of times we are betraying our true self, our true essence, our worth of how we should be living our life. We are giving power away to another story in our head, to another person who's taking control of us, to a coworker, to a boss, to a job. When we give our power away, I believe that that's betraying the self and the soul in your essence of, because when you are standing in that worth and your essence, if something doesn't feel right, you have a boundary. You have an understanding of what you will accept in that moment and what you won't, and that's the rule that you live by. And when you do that, if someone betrays you or something betrays you, it's gonna be really hard for them to do that because you've already created the structure and the wall, and not the walls, but just, like, the stance of, like, "I know and I'm standing in my power." I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, that does. That does.
yeah.
I mean, and that insight is very powerful, I would say. It shows me how these moments exactly expose beliefs that were already there, beliefs about needing to earn love or prove worth. And there's this interesting thing that comes to my mind, but I'll keep it for the latter part of it. But again, coming back to your story, Julie, for busy moms and entrepreneurs listening to this who can relate, how did this loss of self worth show up day to day for you, in parenting and relationships or business? And so, if you could just maybe talk about, I would say, give us a gist in how that affected you.
I as a someone who had had some wounding as a child, I learned and patterned from my parents or my mother more specifically. I learned what the victim looked like. I that was what I was shown. So I came into a lot of situations as the victim of like, why is this happening to me? I keep trying to get a job and I can't get that job. I keep trying to launch this business and I'm making no money. Um, I'm a parent and I have no time to sleep. And I'm a parent and I have all I do is serve this person and make this food for this person. And I have no time in my day. Those were stories I was creating, and there was a lot of truth in that, but what I didn't take accountability was the decisions I was making to continue those patterns, right?
I love that.
Yeah, and that's big, and it's a little bit heartbreaking for the ego or maybe, like, your listener somebody others listening to this and being, like, really triggered by what I'm saying,
Yeah, no,
and I get it.
it is what it is.
It is what it is, and I get it, like, I've been there where it's like, someone had once told me, like, side topic, but, like, "Your mother is your biggest teacher in life," and I'm like,
Mm,
"What? She's so mean to me, like, this is like, how could she be my teacher?" But it's like,
mm,
those hardships, if we can understand how we play in them and why they're showing up for us. I can't do anything about her behavior, but I can do a lot about my response and what I choose to grow from. And just like the early mom in me who was feeding everyone and doing everything and trying to like literally hold up the entire world in her hands with no support. Well, I could have done a few things. I could have created boundaries a lot earlier in my relationship with my husband and really set the expectation of what my needs were and valued my needs and my wants. Because if I never put that out there and I was always trying to please someone else to have them like me, then I'm not setting boundaries for myself and no one's going to know what I need. And then that's that cycle, right? And as an
right.
entrepreneur of, like, creating a business where, like, as a personal trainer, I was like, "But I'm giving all this time, and I'm just not getting the clients." But I also had a huge thread of, like, self-worth, like, what I never felt good enough to be doing what I was doing. So
Mm,
if that's the place you're working from, then that's the energy you're putting out, and then that's what's gonna be pulling back to you as far as, like, that attraction of, like attracts like. So, um, yeah, I think those are some big lessons, that hopefully, there's some takeaways and ho just self-reflection. How can I
mm.
look at my situation differently?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what clicks to my mind actually is that, and I would also invite you all to also maybe think about this. Is that I think we all have different life experiences. All of us have different life experiences, right? And you would honestly find or hear people, give you advices and tell you stuff. But I think what's important to know or really admit that you have had your own unique story, right? And I think no one except other than you can actually help it because you know your story best. So just you need to figure out what works for you. And while you're doing that, you would also find the purpose that you were meant for. So I think that was a bit off topic, I would say, Julie, but
No, I think that was
to
good. I think it's good because it is. It's like we're all on our own journey of
right,
self-discovery and self-essence and finding, like, why, like, all the things are.
yeah,
And and we're all struggling. We're all hopeful. We all tell ourselves stories. Like, there is a very common thread too. So, yeah.
definitely.
Why
The other thing, yeah, the other thing that came to my mind while listening to your story is that Julie, could you, from your experience, because I think we are living in this era where people are just self-obsessed with themselves. I don't know if it's the dopamine hit, the kind of programming that are being done um, by the people above or beyond the matrix. But whatever that is, right? I think we're just becoming very self-obsessed, and I've noticed that compared to, I would say, the last 5 6 years. I don't know. It's maybe because I'm growing up, but coming back to the question, what or how would you say that we can identify some narcissist traits and keep ourselves away from them, because you don't want somebody to drain you up completely, right? And I think it's very important to firstly identify what those peoples are. And again, I think that's I would say um doing your work and setting your boundaries, right? I think so if you could share from your perspective.
Yeah, and I could sort of we could go on a whole rabbit hole of, like, oh, people are becoming self-obsessed, and
Yeah.
a lot of that is tied into, like, technology and the cell phone and always looking at your face. I was just listening to something, and it's like, we weren't we were meant to see ourselves, but not see ourselves all the time, and so there is that, right? Like, think about too.
I never thought about that,
Oh,
but
yeah. Like, what we sell ourselves, like, let's go back 100 years,
mm,
mm, maybe 200, and, like, you're looking in a pond and you see your reflection. Or, right? Or, like, you're looking in some, like
wait, when was Mirrors created? I have no idea.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe longer than that, but, like, the mirrors were
Yeah.
kind of crackly and not good, and the lighting wasn't amazing, and now it's, like,
Yeah.
have a
Yeah, I get it
lighting
totally.
right, to make your photos look good, and they were saying something about, like, the brain can't handle that. Like, we're judging always what we see on the outside
Mm,
to say, is it safe? Is it good? Is it pretty? Is it this? Like, that's how we interpret the world. We weren't meant to do that to our own self, right?
mm,
So then you had this like horrible cycle of constantly seeing yourself, and then you're like, oh my God, I really don't look good in this lighting. Or, oh my God, that doesn't fit me that well. That doesn't look that good on me. And so there's this like unattainable climb to always, like, look better, be better, see that like, from the outside. And I think, like,
yeah.
that's a big topic, and a big rabbit
Sure.
hole.
Yeah.
You wanna go down it with me, I'll totally talk about it. Um, but yeah, I think that also so then you're talking about narcissism, and there's a few different types of narcissism. There's, like, the narcissism that you think about when there's the, like, very in your face, "I have money, I flash everything, I'm this perfect person, it's more outward, and then you have the inward of, like, the covert narcissist that is a little sneakier and a little bit more, soft in their approach, uh,
Mm,
and it's harder like, define that. The 2 underlying themes in like, the different and there's more types of narcissism, but the themes in that are there's, like, phases of how they, enter into your life, and first, it's the, love bombing phase, because how a narcissist is formed is usually it is between the 0 to 7-year-old
Mm.
self. There's some trauma that comes in and disrupts the emotional development of that child, whether they didn't have the attention, the validation, uh, a lot of there's trauma, right, that comes in and makes them feel unsafe and unvalued in this world. And so and it stops their emotional development. So they lose sight of who they are, like, from a fundamental level. And fast forward to the adult narcissist, they're looking to fill that void with people who are, typically codependent, who are the pleasers, who are the self, like, soothers. They are usually very giving, nurturing, kind. A lot of times they aren't as strong in their self-worth because they can't see the signs of what this individual is coming in, kinda like a parasite comes in and feeds off of its host. That's exact that it sounds awful and dark, but it's a way to survive. It's a survival. We're all here for survival, and that's their technique of survival. They are living off your personality traits, absorbing them. That doesn't mean so all of a sudden you think, "Oh my gosh, here's this person who has so much in common with me." They're really just reflecting back you, and then in that love bomb phase, you're like, "Whoa, we have so much in common. It's just so easy. They like to do everything I like to do." And then they'll do something where they test your trust and your faith to them as the host. So, something where they really disappoint you or hurt you in some way.
Mm.
If you don't run away, they're like, "Sweet, I got a good host." And so then they pepper things in, and it's usually over a very long relationship. Like, it's like peppering, and then as soon as they know that you're not gonna run away, then comes the gaslighting and the negative talk and the abuse because they've got you in a pattern where they've seen you be the good person. And that codependent individual is like, oh, but if I could just treat them better, if I could be different, or if I could fit that mold, they would like me again. So it's this very long, very,
Process. Yeah.
is a process, like a very phased out process. And that that is its own, like, living, breathing entity in a way. Being ego obsessed in our society, I think we can get very self-absorbed, but I think it's different than, like, we're not gonna be an adult self turning into a narcissist. That sort of
Mm.
happens, like pathological narcissism. We can have narcissistic, like, traits where it's more, like, self-absorbed, and we become very, like, obsessed with, like, looking at ourselves and doing all the things and doing everything for our own self. Um, yes. So I hope that, like, clarifies the 2 and gives some, like, basic understanding.
Yeah, that's especially relevant, in I would say in today's world, and I think that's why I felt like the need for asking, though it was totally, I believe, a bit off topic. But what you shared, rather, I get it. It's very tricky in a way to identify, the people who are usually self-obsessed with themselves, and I think it's important to do that as the zeroth step, I would say, not even the first step, right? Or on setting your boundaries. But yeah, I mean, coming
Yeah.
back to, yeah.
I was gonna say, I think, like, you asked, like, how would you, like, protect yourself? But it's like, it's actually understanding. That's sort of where I went into it, is because, like, it's understanding the differences, and then also, like, being in your boundaries and knowing your truth and, like, being unshakable in that. You won't let anyone else convince you otherwise, convince you
Absolutely.
that you're wrong or or convince you to do things you don't wanna do. Like, you will be unshakable in that.
Absolutely. And I think again that's the best kind of note to wrap it off on. And what I would like you all to folks think of is that I think betrayal can really break you open, but it does induce certain intention, honesty, and daily self trust. It can also become the doorway to deeper self worth and a more aligned life if you let it be. So that's what I want you all to walk away with from this conversation. And before we wrap off, Julie would love to ask our listeners who want to learn more about your work or connect with you. Where's the best place they could find you at?
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so if you wanna hear more about topics that, we talked about today and just my insights, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at julie.f.feldman, F as in Frank, Eldman. And then I do have my business, which sells products with intention. So it's just these tools that really help you ground in your self-worth and your essence. And that is, through TikTok and Instagram at Aurenda, Aurenda. And you can also find us online at aurenda.us.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing the details, Julie. And definitely, I will include the links in the show notes for everyone who's listening to this so that they can easily find you at. And with that, we come to today's end of this conversation. And I just want you to thank you all for being here and sharing your story, uh, uh, Julie, with such honesty. And to all our listeners, if this conversation did resonate with you, like I always say, take a moment to reflect on where life might be calling you back to yourself. And with that, um, I would like to say this is Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. And take care of your mind, your heart, and we'll see you in the next one.